First of all, let me say very good evening to all of you. I'll be briefly sharing some thoughts on our research project, which NIU is partnering with the Oxford Brookes University and CEPT and SPA, and maybe other key stakeholders on a project called City Forms India. It talks about sustainable urban form for Indian cities. I'll be talking about the first two parts of the presentation about the project and briefly about the first case study, that's the Rajkot case study, and my colleagues will be talking about Faridabad case study. We have taken two cities in this as pilot cities. The basic aim of this project is to look at how urban form, the shape, the density, physical configuration and the layout can influence the sustainability of a place. And it's broken into four basic objectives on investigating how urban form performs at various levels. The project methodology, I would just skip. It basically talks about first the extensive review of literature on various forms of sustainability and urban form, and then it's the two institutes of planning are taking two respective case studies. The CEPT is talking about the Rajkot, and Faridabad study is being done by School of Planning and Architecture. So the details are dealt later, and the potential outcomes would be to identify issues which are of some strategic interventions for determining design of new cities and redevelopment of existing ones. And this would be helpful for decision makers and policy makers in terms of analytical understanding. And it would also be helpful for urban local bodies and other stakeholders involved with studying urban form. We have taken up two studies. The basic parameters are discussed herein. Rajkot is having a very rapid growth, and it's one of the fourth largest cities in Gujarat, and it has developed into an important manufacturing center for its automobile and foundry works, and follows a town planning scheme. The case study area has been 6 detailed case study areas have been taken up on varying density and patterns from core to periphery, and this basically is divided by physical surveys have been taken up by students using the primary data of land use and traffic surveys. The areas we have picked up 6 urban areas. 5 of them are town planning schemes, and one is the historical core of the city, which is the Ward 8, and this is the traditional residential neighborhood area specializing into heritage buildings and commercial spaces. And then the various other areas, TP schemes, which are 3 and 5, 3B, which are middle income and housing areas, and TP scheme 5 and 22 are basically the periphery areas which are still having vacant land and having slums and low income groups. These are the basic urban figures, comparative figures for the various town plans, which I won't go in detail. And now I would request my colleague Arpita to talk about the Faridabad study.
Good evening, everybody. I'll start with why we have taken Faridabad as a case study to do sustainable city form. Faridabad is a satellite city of Delhi. We all know that. It has a great interdependence with the city of Delhi. And that was our primary motive for taking this city up, because it had good community interaction, employment opportunities, plus it had physical, economic and social interactive opportunities. It is a major industrial city which has led to tremendous job opportunities, migration to the city, and rapid change in land use, which has led to haphazard growth. Another reason was the large-scale real estate development which is happening in the city, which provides tremendous scope for growth. Now, some of the urban form components which we are trying to study in this project are, and then subsequently trying to link them with sustainability and how we can shape a city, make it more sustainable through the urban form of that city. And urban form, the components that we are looking at are the morphological parts of an urban area, the urban size, shape, density and compactness, mixed use, the urban block layout and size, the housing types, and the distribution of the open spaces within the city. Going into the city structure, the city has some very distinct characteristics, like first of all, it is a linear city which has developed along, on two sides rather, of a highway. And on one side we have the Aravalis, and on the other side we have the canal. So these two natural features on either side of the highway has led to a linear development of the city and not a lateral one. And the railway line which parallels the highway is a very important feature and a link between the Delhi and the Agra city. And also the new upcoming metro line, which is planned parallel to the railway line and the highway in the center, is another important aspect of transport that we're looking at. So the city, the structure of the city that we looked at was basically four parts. One is the old city, which is like any other organic city or old part of the city which exists in any town. Like we have Shahjahanabad in New Delhi. Similarly, there is an old Faridabad in Faridabad. And then there are the planned areas. Then there are the sectoral development areas. And then since it's an industrial area, industrial land use plays a very important role. So after doing a preliminary overall study of the area, we selected 4 areas for our detailed study. And looking at urban form of these 4 areas would lead to certain precise understandings and opportunities that we intend to find out. So the first area is Old Faridabad area, which is the one on the top in the green color. I don't know, the colors are, I guess, mixed up. The Old Faridabad area is part of the Sector 18, and it has a typical courtyard typology, which with organic street patterns and houses abutting the streets. So this, like I mentioned, is like any other old city, old part of a city. The next area is the NIT area, which is the new industrial township, and we took it's a large township which basically was planned on the concept of garden city, and it was to house the refugees post partition. And the concept of this is to have a central garden and planned plots around that garden. It also has an organic layout. The third is the Sector 15, which is one of the sectoral development areas. And it is characterized by a typical gridiron pattern and straight avenues, large plots on either side with mostly detached houses. The fourth characteristic area that we took up was Sector 30 and 31 in Faridabad, which is characterized by slum and unauthorized area. So we tried to make a collage of what different aspects, different characteristics of the city there are, and then try to understand the city through that. Looking at equal sized slices of each of these areas, we saw a difference in the way the layouts are done. So the NIT on the top shows the flowing road patterns and the plots along it. The Sector 15 below it shows a straight gridiron pattern where the roads are straight and the houses are, the plots are cut along it. The third is the Sector 30-31 where there is haphazard development. Some of the slums have now been regularized. There is also a combination of high-rises with plotted development. The fourth is the Old Faridabad, which is a typical high-density old city area. Now quickly I'll just quickly brush through all the 4 areas. Yeah.
Let's not get it.
Okay. So
please go to the
conclusion. Basically, we studied all these 4 areas, the Sector 15, Old Faridabad, New Industrial Township. We prepared certain drawings. We identified the typologies, and we are in the process of doing a combined analysis of the household survey, which is basically a social survey that we conducted, and the urban form survey. So our next step is this combined analysis, which then subsequently we would like to link with the other case study, which is the Rajkot study, which Satmohini had mentioned earlier. And that would hopefully lead us to certain sustainable conclusions to this project.